Good morning, happy Wednesday. Welcome to Live with Liz. We've been on and off the last few weeks for Jewish holidays, and actually today is another holiday that I was not planning to be here, but I mixed up the dates. I totally did it. I mixed up the dates on the calendar, and so here I am. Maybe I did it on purpose because I just missed everyone and being here with all of you. Before we dive into today's topic, which is government relations and lobbying for law firms, I just want to take a second and say congratulations to all of the people out there who are happy and honored and proud to have received their INTA committee assignments the past few days or last week. It's exciting, and I'm happy for all of you, and I've seen all of your posts. And now I challenge you. I would really like to see some detail about your committees and what it is that your committees do, what the mandate is, what your role is, and what you're going to do with these committees over the course of the term that you're on them. So share another post and let us know exactly what's happening with those committees, because at least one person, me, wants to know. So how about it? Good morning, guys. Hey, Mariana. Yeah, just after this, we have our Women's IP Today event today, and I'm very excited about it. But I digress. Government relations and lobbying. I wanted to cover this topic because I see this as a place of growth for a lot of the law firms that I work with, especially those that are already providing the services related to government relations and lobbying, either not so explicitly, maybe it's a little bit hidden in their services, or maybe they're doing it quietly because of regulations in their particular jurisdiction, or maybe they just don't focus on it because they don't realize it can be a lucrative service that law firms provide. So there are a lot of reasons, but before we dive into that part of it, what is lobbying? What are we talking about here? Where does this fit in? And so lobbying in the United States is legal, and it's where you represent people based on interest to decision makers, regulators, government officials, some cases, legislators, the people who have power and decision-making ability to effect change, hopefully for the benefit of your client. Now, I work with a lot of intellectual property law firms, and intellectual property is an area where we see a lot of lobbying in the United States. But there's a lot of lobbying in the law firm industry itself. You see bar associations paying lobbyists. You see it across industries. There's a lot of lobbying in different sectors. In the energy sector, you see it very frequently. In the pharmaceutical sector, you see it. It is a very common practice, and there are a lot of reasons for it, where you might need to influence decision makers so that your clients can have a better outcome when it comes to the regulations that affect them on their day-to-day, their operations, their authorizations, getting things through. And in intellectual property, which is more relatable, I know, to a lot of people in my audience, it also is the influence of what's protectable or how examination works. Now, a lot of people don't see themselves as lobbyists who are lawyers who are engaged in these types of services, maybe without realizing it, because maybe they're not paid explicitly for lobbying. But when it comes down to it, lobbying is about relationships. And a lot of the lawyers who are already providing this service have relationships with the different people who are either the decision makers themselves when it comes to certainly government at many different levels, and sometimes maybe not the decision makers themselves, but sometimes the influencers. And so if you're providing, for example, in your corporate practice, regulatory services, and you're helping corporate clients get the authorizations they need, maybe it's an advertising authorization, maybe it's an import-export authorization, you are already familiar with bureaucracy, with procedures in place that are needed to support your clients, and you're already sort of offering this. What happens when something goes wrong? So I'll give you an example. A client, and this one is related to intellectual property. So a client in the tech sector says, hey, my patent application is just sitting. We really are waiting on this to make some strategic decisions, make sure that things are in place. We've got our manufacturers working. We've got things ready to go. Everything is riding on this. And for some reason, there's a delay. And let's suppose this delay is outside of the United States. So this imaginary delay is in a foreign country. likely in Latin America. Okay, let's just say it's Brazil. And it's just sitting there. It's just delayed. And you're thinking, what am I going to do to help my client? And the client says, we have to do something. Let's think outside of the box. What are we going to do? And you say, you know what? I'm going to make some phone calls and just see, why is this sitting? Maybe I can get a meeting. Maybe I can talk to someone. So maybe you have a relationship at the Patent and Trademark Office and you call up and you try and speak with someone, or you even visit in person and you say, I've got this client with this pending right that is just waiting for examination, and there's a delay. I'm not sure what's causing it, but I'd like to come in and see if there's anything we can do about it, and maybe set a meeting. You get your meeting. It's great. Now you have this opportunity to not only make an inquiry, but you also have the opportunity to make a case on behalf of your client and find an ally at this organization. Maybe they're an influencer, maybe they're a decision maker, maybe they're just someone who is a contact you're building a relationship with on behalf of your client who's giving you some time. Now, that might not be defined exactly as lobbying. You're not being paid exactly for the purpose, or you're not paying them to grease any wheels or anything like that. There's not confusion here, but you're acting on behalf of your client's interests to make a change and influence a decision, or at least to have some sort of ally and build a relationship there. And that is a government relations sort of service. Now, a lot of people don't want to do lobbying because it's taboo. And why is it taboo? It's because it's sometimes looked at as a cloak for bribery. There is often this kind of, I don't even want to say it's old-fashioned, because even today we look at it and say, this is just corruption. What are you talking about? But there are good sides and bad sides to almost everything that you're doing. And if you're already doing this already, you may have the framework in place to be able to structure this as a service. And here's a really cool example right now from our friends at Modal. This happens in the US. They call the PCT help desk regarding something delayed, get the case examined. Awesome. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So you're probably already doing this, and maybe you have the framework in place to offer it as a service. A lot of the law firms, especially even IP firms, are already doing this. And maybe they don't come out and say that it's lobbying. Maybe they call it something different, like public strategies or public policy. Maybe it's related to additional things. Of course, we know that you did not mean bribery or corruption, noted. Lobbying is an important part of these strategies. Maybe you're working with companies that are involved in government contracting. Maybe there are administrative law aspects of their needs that you're covering for them. And maybe your persuasiveness when it comes to decision makers is something that you can sell to your clients alongside the traditional legal services that you're providing. And you can get paid for those lobbying efforts that you're making on behalf of an industry. Maybe you already have the relationships in place to make those things happen. So I want you to step back for a minute and assess whether or not this could be a practice area that aligns nicely with the legal services that you're already providing in an area of potential growth for your firm. Now, if I'm a corporate, especially when it comes to cross-border measures, and I need some assistance, and I want to make sure I'm hiring a firm that has those relationships in place, even if you don't have the services structured exactly as lobbying, or even well-defined when it comes to what it looks like and how much you're charging for it, just putting it out there that you have these relationships and that you can make things happen or attempt to on behalf of your clients can be beneficial. So it doesn't have to be a fully defined, structured idea at this point. You're already providing some of the services. Just take a look and assess exactly what you're doing to see if you might be able to arrange this as a practice area or supplement the current practice areas that you have with your experience, your relationship experience, and your interest-based representation. So, I mean, it does go well beyond intellectual property. Obviously, I mentioned government contracting, but there are a lot of different areas that are regulated that have these types of influences attached to them. They're also, like, even I have done lobbying. What does that look like? I volunteered with a group to get funding in place. So a lot of government funding has interest attached to it, as we all know. And if you want to influence it, you can even, as a part of your civic duty or something. Make those interests known to the decision makers. A lot of times they don't even know which way to vote because they don't know what their constituents are looking for. They don't know what's best for the economy or the industry. Maybe they don't understand the industry. So you building relationships with them and having that influence on behalf of your clients who are in these particular industries that are being influenced and have major impacts on economies, on operations, on manufacturing, on all of the extended industries that they touch, can make a big difference in the long term for your clients and in your ability to get new clients in these spaces where people really want to engage with firms and with lawyers who have the relationships in place to address these issues when they come up. So tech company says, we have to do something. I know it's not usual to have a meeting, but can you get one? And look at that, you can. And so you set the meeting, you have this chance, and it turns out there was just a minor misunderstanding in something. You clear it up in that meeting, everything goes smoothly. Wow, success for your client. And basically you've just lobbied and gotten a success. Why not sell that as a service? Makes sense to me. If you're apprehensive about calling it lobbying, or if there are regulations against lobbying per se in your jurisdiction, but these types of government influence are still acceptable practices and necessary to get things done in particular places, then there are other ways, of course, to frame them. As I mentioned before, you can call it public policy or public strategies, but in the US, you could do searches on these law firms and see law firms that are providing government relations, which goes well beyond just lobbying, but you can get an idea for what the framework of this legal service looks like. And there are a lot of law firms that, with the intellectual property service providers and law firms that do IP, they're already offering this. So some of your partners are doing this already, and you may be able to learn from them. And take advantage of this as an opportunity to just reach out and connect with people and maybe explore this as a practice area with the partners that you have that are already doing it. So if you haven't thought about government relations and lobbying as a practice area or as an expansion of the legal services that you're providing, especially if you're a B2B firm, especially if you're involved in cross-border transactions or in cross-border legal services, consider it. Take a look at your services. See what the regulations are in your jurisdiction. Make sure that you understand what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do in terms of offering these as an explicit service. See if the way you're offering services already, maybe you've got government relations on your website, maybe you're offering regulatory advice or administrative law, maybe you can put those into another way, another framework, another way to communicate them to your clients to add value when a client is looking for somebody with a unique situation at hand. They need some special guidance, and you're in a position with the relationships in place to offer that for them. Solutions that are not the expected way to go. You know, when I was corporate, I was always looking for law firms that would understand that, you know, we didn't always fit the mold, and we needed sometimes a little bit of extra special attention for things that you would never even consider when you're first looking at it. Maybe you have a situation with a corporate registration and you have to do things a certain way for taxes. Maybe you have some sort of an issue that arises because of a licensing agreement that you have in place that you never even thought would be an issue, but all of a sudden you can't get your Disney product into Russia. All of these things need creative solutions. Government relations can really be a part of that, along with lobbying when it's done legally and ethically in the best interest of your clients, society, the industries that they serve. If you have questions about how to frame this for your law firm or how to come up with a good way to communicate these services and enhance the legal services that you're providing, reach out to us at solutions@firmforward.com. We are always here to answer questions and to talk through these issues with you and to help you think about new and exciting ways to continue providing your legal services to your clients. And we will see you again next time on Live with Liz. Wednesdays at 9 o'clock a.m. Hopefully most Wednesdays at 9 o'clock a.m. We'll let you know if we're not here. And yeah, thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.